Are you bored of repeating your vocabulary and learning new words? I can understand you. I talked about a method for learning new words, these flashcards where you write the meaning on one side in your own language and the other side on the language you want to learn. You can check out the video. There is a link somewhere here on this video that you're going to find if you want to look at it. And you might say, okay, this is, yeah, I get you, but this is horribly boring. You might have another method for learning words and you might also find that boring. And in this video, I want to address this issue because boredom is really our enemy number one when it comes to language learning. Because if you're bored too much, eventually you're going to give up. And that's what we definitely don't want. And as I've been saying many, many times, language learning is a long-term game and yeah, boredom might just kill it. So what I want to say is, with this method I was talking about, it was not so much about the method. It is much more about a few principles that are super important when it comes to vocabulary learning. Number one, you have to make sure that you're learning few new words per day, not many. After I posted the video where I said 3 words per day, maximum 5, somebody said to me, yeah, but I'm learning 3 languages at the same time. I have a lot of time. I learn 25 new words every day in each language. Why should I not do that? Why should I restrict myself? And I said, okay, do the maths. In 300 days from now, by the end of the year, you will have the vocabulary of a native speaker in 3 languages. Is that realistic? Is this going to happen? No, of course not. Why not? Because you're going to forget. So what you can do, you can learn 50 new words today. You can learn all sorts of vegetables that are in the supermarket. Learn them by heart. Tomorrow I give you an exam, you will remember them. But if I ask you 3 weeks, 3 months from now, they're gone. Okay? So principle number 1, very few new words per day. 3, 4, 5. If you can stick through it and do 7, okay, I'm happy. But believe me, most of my students cannot, me included. The other thing, though, is you have to repeat a lot. So many advanced students make this mistake that they, for example, say, hey, I'm going to read a novel and because my language level is good enough, at least a simple novel I can read or a detective story, something like that. And I'm going to learn new words. When I come across a new word, I'm going to look it up in the dictionary and then I'm somehow magically going to remember it. No, this is not going to happen. The problem is you're going to look up this word, you will see it, understand it. Great. If I ask you tomorrow, you have forgotten it. Okay? So repetition is the second big thing. Now, since we know that for being fluent in a language, you need to know a lot of words, like at least 2, 3, better 4,000, this is a long-term game. This means the only way to get there is regularity. You really have to work on your vocabulary every single day. It has to become like something like brushing your teeth. So therefore, it's very important that you build a routine, that you do that at a time of the day when it's just very natural for you to do it, where eventually, when you stick to it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, it will just go automatic. For example, first thing you do after breakfast, or first thing you do when you come home from work, or last thing you do before you go to sleep. Whatever works for you, try that, okay? But make sure to find some routine where you say, okay, now 5 minutes, I'm going to work on my vocabulary. I'll talk a bit more about how in a minute. But this is just, this is just sacred. Nobody's allowed to disturb me. If the phone rings, I'm not going to take it. And the fourth principle, learn words in context. Okay? Never go and say, okay, 3 sorts of vegetables and tomorrow 3 new sorts of vegetables. It's not going to work because you're not just going to remember, cauliflower, okay. No, a word sticks in our memory, or an expression sticks in our memory when we remember it in a certain context. You know, when somebody tells a joke, you're going to remember this. If you said something awkward about some issue, you're going to remember it the rest of your life. That's also why we construct all our books and online language courses around the story, because it's much more natural for you to remember a new word when you said, oh yeah, that was when in the story this or that happened, and it was a bit funny, or it was a bit awkward, or not even, it was just, but it was in the context of the story. It's much easier to remember. So don't go and randomly pick up words from any vocabulary trainer. So how can you do that? I advocated these flashcards, but I am absolutely happy if you say, no, this is too boring, I want to give it up, I want to try something else right away. You can do a vocabulary trainer, okay? With our books and courses, we also have vocabulary trainers on Memrise. You can do them on your phone. You can do that when you're waiting for the bus. Great. Still, when you use a vocabulary trainer or an app on your phone, make sure from time to time it's really great to write, like, old-fashioned with a pencil on paper, dead trees, the things that our grandparents used to do. Why? Because it's yet another way of exercising your brain, Read the word, type it, write it, say it aloud. Also very, very underestimated, because by that you also train your pronunciation. But again, you say it aloud, you hear it, it's yet another channel that you're trying. So again, if you're working with a vocabulary trainer, take a piece of paper sometimes and just write the words before you check on the trainer whether you got them correct or not. What you could also do, if you don't like phones or if you don't like flashcards, you could take a little notebook and, for example, you could just put the difficult words, like you put the difficult word on one side on your own language and the other side on the language you want to learn, okay? So you can look them up. You could be a bit creative, and in this notebook, to all the difficult words that you have issues remembering, you can make a drawing, or you can even put a mini story, or at least a sentence where it is used, or a funny expression that it is used in, so that it's a bit easier for you to stick. What you choose, absolutely up to you. Just make sure to stick to these 4 principles that I've been talking about earlier. If you're a beginner, the new words should come from your textbook or your online course. These are usually designed, at least ours are designed in a way that the words that are very frequent in the language come first, so it makes sense from a efficiency perspective to learn these words first. If you're an advanced student, the words can come from anywhere. As I said before, if you want to read a novel in the original language, perfect. Don't make the mistake to write down every single word that you don't know. It's a waste of time. Just write the words that you think are really important, for example, that occurs several times and you say, oh my God, I've read it so many times and every time I forget what it is. Write these down, or the ones that you like, or the ones that you find useful because you might need them in your profession or in your hobby, whatever. So be a bit selective then, and make sure, again, not too many words. So if you're reading 2 chapters in your novel one evening, don't write 50 new words, okay? Have this attitude of somehow collecting words, like somebody who collects stamps. You're going to collect words and make them your own. If you think that all of this doesn't work, if you think, okay, this is just, I really can't get myself to working with vocabulary, at least find something else that makes you repeat whatever material you have been through on a regular basis. For example, if you work with one of our books, retell the story to your teddy bear. Okay, once you finish the chapter, tell it to your teddy bear 2, 3, 4 times, and look up the words that you don't remember. I know somebody who learned the story by heart, the first, I think, 10 chapters or so. Wouldn't work for me, but for him it worked. Okay, perfect. Be creative. Please share in the comments what is your method for repeating words regularly. Also, what are your challenges? What are your problems or your suggestions? I'd be really curious to hear. There might be hundreds of other opportunities or possibilities that we would like to hear about. Maybe also you can pick something from somebody else who had a method that somehow resonates to you. Again, to sum up, it's not about the method. You can use flashcards, you can use a notebook, you can use a vocabulary trainer, you can use anything. That's really not important. What is important are the principles. Few new words, repeat a lot, do it very, very regularly, and do it in a context. Okay, that's it for today. As I said, I'd be happy to hear from you in the comments. What is your method for learning words?